Hi, it's Massachusetts OUI Lawyer Mike DelSignore here. In today's video, I want to talk about what information I'm going to need to evaluate your case when you call. Often people call, they're charged with OUI and they want to know how did the case look, basically. What are their chances and things like that. So I'm going to explain today what kind of questions I'll ask and what type of information I'll be looking for and what information you should seek when you talk to any attorney. These are sort of the key elements to determine how triable cases, whether you should resolve it or try to work out a plea or take it to trial. So typically what I'll do is, let's say you arrested over the weekend and your court date is on Monday. In this case, we don't have the police report, so we don't have all the information. But generally what I want to know is, why were you stopped? Was there alcohol in the car? Did you make any admissions to the police officer? And how did you think the field test went? Now, I know the officer is going to say, he thought you failed and that you made some mistakes on these tests. But generally, people have a fairly good idea of how the test went. And, if there's nothing major, like I'm looking for major indicators in these tests, like you stumbled, you fell down, not minor indicators, which is most of the time what is indicated in these police reports. In other words, many times these reports are going to say you missed heel to toe, you stepped offline. That's not a big deal. And the key mistake people make is they read the report and they say, oh, he said I failed, said I missed heel to toe, can't win the case, let's just enter a plea. Well, that's not how we look at the case. And our success over the years is really based on the fact that I know how the officer may testify at trial. I know what they're likely to give me in terms of information. In other words, when I look at the report, projecting how is the officer going to testify at trial, because at trial, the officer can't simply read the police report. In other words, at trial, it's a live event. The officer's got to remember the incident. He can refresh his memory from the report, and often they do, but they're not just reading the report. So in many cases, the case comes in better than what the report suggests. In other words, if you read the report, generally it'd be worse for the person than if the officer has to remember it. A lot of officers aren't really out to get people. As you may think this officer's out to get you, that he was aggressive. And it could be he was upset at the time of the arrest. But by the time this goes to trial, generally the officers, they're just doing their job. They're going to testify, and often they answer the questions the way I expect and want them to answer to. Now, there's always exceptions, but that's generally the case. So when I get these reports, when you're on the phone, I want to know, do you have any medical issues that explain bad balance? Do you have any witnesses? That's sort of the things we want to start looking at and thinking about as we try to size up. Is this a case you're going to resolve, or is this a case you're going to want to take to trial? Now, in a first offense, it's generally very little downside to going to trial. But these are sort of the questions people usually ask. How does my case look? If there's an accident, there's alcohol in the car, it's obviously a bad start to the case. We need to find some way to sort of change the complexion of that case. That's probably not going to be a great police report if you crashed, alcohol in the car, and there's admissions. But it could be that you have witnesses, and that's the type of case where we may need to tell a story because the report is not, there's cross-examination from the report. It's probably not going to get the job done. So in a lot of cases, let's say you stop for speeding or marked lane violation. If that's the case, if everything the officer says is true in the report, you're going to be found not guilty because it's a high standard of proof. It's very subjective. And in that type of case, there could be a lot of reasons why you may not have passed these field sobriety tests other than alcohol. So that's really the best type of case when it's very subjective, when it's not a major driving reason for the stop. Now, breath test evidence, we've been going back for years. Breath tests haven't been used for a very long time. Now they're coming back into evidence again, supposedly, but not a big deal to me. I get these tests knocked out often. There's a lot of rules that the government has to comply with to get these tests in, so don't assume just because there's a test, that's the end of the story. It's certainly an issue we got to handle, but it's not insurmountable. It doesn't mean that we fold up our tent every time we see a breath test. If we had, we'd have you can see the list of successes on our website. They're extensive and they're recent. And a lot of those cases, at least half a breath test. A lot of people do take the breath test. So don't think that you can't win the case because there's a breath test. Now, it takes longer generally if there's a breath test. There's more work for us to do, but don't be discouraged just because there's a breath test in the case. So what I'll ask you on the phone is these questions, like, Where were you coming from? Medical issues that explain problems with balance and things like that. So I can get a sense of what type of case do we have? Do we have a case where we'll be able to go to trial and you won't have to testify? Or is this a case where we're going to have to tell sort of a different story, different projection than what the officer indicates in the report? So yeah, those are the issues I cover on the first phone call. I'll go over the license consequences, how you're going to get your license back, the procedural steps in court, what's going to happen, how long the process is going to take. So I want you to have as much information about this as possible. I like my clients to know, be educated, have a realistic expectation of how things will proceed in court. I can give you a very good outline. I have a book that explains the law. We have tons of videos online that cover almost every topic that you could ask for. I've been doing this for a very long time, and I like to educate the public and make sure my clients know what to expect going forward. It just makes for a smoother process. And I'm here to help you. My passion is helping people win drunk driving cases. I've been doing this for a long time, and I'll be glad to help you. Call, text anytime. 781-686-5924. Mike DelSignore, here to help you and here to help answer your questions.